Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm still waking up this morning, so I might be a bit groggy. But yeah, I'm doing my November reading wrap up today, which I've been really excited for actually, because November was a really good reading month for me, and I'll be doing them every month because I think it's quite nice to just document how the month went, and I think it's a nice way to catch if other people are reading similar things to you. So then, yeah, if anyone's reading what I'm reading or in a series that I'm reading, like, let's connect, comment in the comment below. And yeah, I just think it's a great way to just get the vibe of everyone and see what everyone's reading, which is quite nice. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off with my November reading stats and then go through my books, but I'm not gonna go into too much detail, just like the overall synopsis of the book, and then what I liked and disliked, and then my rating. So yeah, I hope you enjoy and let's get into it. So my November reading stats. I use both Goodreads and StoryGraph to kind of log my books, but in different ways. So I use Goodreads for my TBR list because it's a more user-friendly platform, and obviously everyone uses Goodreads, so it's got more reviews, it's got a bit more description of the books, and yeah, it's just an easier place for me to list all the books I want to read. However, I use StoryGraph because to log my reading progress and to log all the books I've read, because I love the analytics side of it. It's so aesthetically pleasing. I don't know if any of you use StoryGraph. Let me know what you use for logging your books and stuff, but StoryGraph is just so good. I like that it does a graph of how many books you've read, but also the pages, because some months I read fewer books, but they're really chunky. So it's nice to see on the graph that even if I've read fewer books, I've got really high pages. I know it's silly, but it's like a reward, seriously. So I've read 5 books this November, and it's actually been my best reading month of the year. I think there was one other month where I read 5 books, which was February. Then in total I read 177 pages, and physically reading from a book, a physical copy, I read 1697 pages, and I listened to 20.97 hours of audiobook, which is rare for me. I don't listen to audiobooks often. I listen to an audiobook at night every night, but I don't count that because it's books I've already read and it's just to help me to sleep. But yeah, those are actual books I've read this month, listened to this month. And then my top mood was actually a joint this month, and it was a joint between dark and adventurous. And then my top genre was fantasy, which is not surprising in the slightest. Pretty much will probably be that most months. So yeah, that's my stats. So the first book that I read was Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. And this was actually one of the audiobooks I listened to. Don't judge me for having both copies, a bit of reader math here. I got it on Audible, and it was my partner's Audible, so it was 1 credit. So I felt like I didn't buy it. And then this is from World of Books, a secondhand book. So again, I feel like it's a half buy. So together, I feel like I've justified why I've got both. I just love it on the shelf. I don't know if anyone else has that. I just like seeing the books I've read and listened to. It's like affirmation. I'm like, yeah, I've read all these books. Anyway, so this is a YA dark fantasy with themes of betrayal, sibling rivalry, self-discovery, and it's set on an island called Fenburn, and every generation triplet queens are born, and they each have a unique magical ability. Now, they're raised together until they're 6, and then they're split up, and they're basically pitted against each other, and when they turn 16, only one of them is allowed to survive and then be crowned the official queen of Fenburn. And yeah, they have to kill each other. No one else can kind of be involved. So that's the gist of the book, and we follow the triplets are Mirabella, Arsinoe, and Catherine. And yeah, I mean, when I picked it up, it gave me like Hunger Games kind of vibes with sister rivalry, a lot of scheming, plotting, like that was what I was expecting. However, the pacing was just so slow. Not much happened for me in the book. I feel like it was setting up a lot for the next books to come, probably. And yeah, I just expected a lot more from it. Like in physical, like action, but yeah, it just didn't have that. It was a lot of getting to know the sisters and about their magic and about how they've been brought up, and there was only some interactions between all of like the main three. So yeah, it lacked a bit there for me. There was some really annoying romances. It's not a romance, I wouldn't name it a fantasy romance, but it did have some elements of fantasy in it, romance in it. There was a love triangle, but again, for me, it was an annoying love triangle. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, it just was a bit frustrating for me. However, the ending was spot on. Like, I didn't expect the twist. I was really, really shocked. And I'm usually really good at spotting the clues throughout the book. It's not a brag, but I don't get surprised too much. Like, I kind of know the gist of what the oh my God will be. But I did not expect that ending. And also there's another what the hell moment a couple of chapters before the ending. And I was listening to the audiobook while walking through London, and I literally gasped out loud, and people looked round at me. I did not see it. It was so left field. So because of that, I was like, I'm sticking with this series. I feel like, yeah, like I said, this book was like a starter for the series to come. And I gave it a 3 out of 5. So yeah, overall, an okay read. So the next book is One Dark Throne by Kendare Blake. Surprise! The second book in the series. I also listened to this on Audible, and yeah, so again, a dark fantasy YA novel, and yeah, it picks up straight where we left off in the other book, and it follows the queen still like basically competing for the crown, and yeah, but instead it focuses more on like the betrayal. There's some hidden identity in there. There's a lot more scheming going on. And yeah, like right off the bat, there's a lot more action going on. There's more evil characters, which is what I wanted from the first book, because as a dark fantasy, I'm expecting some crazy people in there and some twisty people, a bit unhinged. And we do get that in this book, which I was really happy about. So the beginning was great. And then I don't know what happened. It just, characters started to revert back to the old book, like their behavior. The plot just dies for me. Like, it picks up near the end, but in the middle there's just a bit of a lull. I'm just so, I ended the book feeling a bit underwhelmed. That was the only thing. So it had like highs and lows. It definitely was an improvement from the first book, I'm not gonna lie. But again, the romance side of it, the men, Blake, I don't know why she writes the men like this, but they are so frustrating. They get away with anything. I don't like how the women just kind of forget and what they've done, or they like, oh, I'm really upset of what you've done, but then they get over it straight away. Just bin them. It's just so frustrating. I mean, the last few chapters, there was a lot, like it like schemed at the start, a bit of the dead in the middle, and then at the end there was a lot of chess pieces moving, and I was on the edge of my seat a bit. But then the right at the end, like the last chapter, I was just like, meh. I am gonna still stick with the series. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I kept it the same as the first book, because even though it was better, yeah, the improvements weren't enough to rate it higher for me. So yeah, I would recommend the series, but yeah, the action just doesn't hit for me. So the next book, the third book of my reading wrap up, is Honey by Mariel Pomeroy. And this is the second book in her Hellfire series. And yeah, so to summarize the series, so this is a dark fantasy romance novel with erotica, demons, mythology, and yeah, so the first book, it follows Ahaya, who is escaping her realm, and to escape the realm, she loses her immortality and powers, and she goes into the demon, like dark, like it's like light versus dark kind of thing, and she seeks like asylum in the dark demon realm, but to get entry into there, she has to give up her soul for 7 days to Ariok, who is the ruler of Algeria, I think it's called. I think that's what the realm's called. Yes, yeah. And basically it's about her time in that realm, dealing with the consequences of obviously losing her power and the consequence of giving him her soul, and kind of the bond that forms between them. It's definitely enemies to lovers, but it's not like a typical romance. And definitely check your trigger warnings. This is dark and yes, not all consensual. Yeah, check the trigger warnings definitely when you read this. Now, what did I like? So I really like the new characters that we get introduced to. One of my favorites was Nico. They were great. They were a non-binary character, and she really, Pomeroy, she really writes just all sorts of all types of characters and identities and ethnicities and sexuality so well. Like, it's not a big deal, and I love that in books. Like, this is what life should be, like normal life should be, and she just writes it so fluently. It's not like an issue, which I really enjoyed from her first book, and she does it really, really well in the second book. So that's what I did like that. Is that all I liked? The overall book was just too chaotic, and it was more of a chore reading it. Like, it was really difficult to read some of it, as in it didn't make sense. There was a lot of grammatical errors and punctuation and formatting errors, which also, it just takes you out of the vibe. Like, when you're reading, you're really into it, and then it's like, oh, your brain has to work out what's going on because of the spelling mistakes, and yeah, it just falters the reading experience. And also, there were so many unanswered questions from the first book, and they were not answered in this book. And I feel like we end with even more questions, so that's now 2 books of questions. So yeah, sadly, I gave this a 2 out of 5. But I will continue with the series, because what Mariel does really well is she makes you obsessed with these characters, and I just need to know what's going to happen. So yeah, another cliffhanger. I will continue. I just hope it's better. So the next book is Stolen by the Wolves by Lynx Robinson, and this is a Viking Omegaverse fantasy novel, which is a reverse harem, and also it's quite historical. Yeah, so the book is set in It's set in 870. Yep. So way back. Basically, it follows Tamsin, who lives in Strakoth, I think it's called. Let me have a look quick, because I'm going to get that wrong. No, see, I got that wrong. She lives in Strathclyde, and at this time, Vikings are sweeping over Ireland and Britain, and like taking over and pillaging and stuff like that. So she's currently been living in Strathclyde, safe from all of this. But basically, in this book, she finds herself in the centre of all of this war and drama. And so 3 Vikings of Dublin, called the Wolves of Dublin, are basically hunting for her kind. I loved this book. It was so good. I don't know if you read Viking Omegaverse books or Viking books, but this was my first Omegaverse. And when I did some research before picking up this genre, I looked at all the tropes. Now, I feel like this book misses some typical tropes of the Omegaverse, but for me, for a first timer, it was perfect. There was no information dump. The plot was so easy to follow. The characters were so great. I just loved it. And the writing was just so easy to read. Like, I think I read it in under 2 days. I loved the 2 protagonists, and it kind of goes from unknown enemies to friends to enemies to lovers, and it's a slow burn romance. I did pick this book up because I read a review that it was really steamy, so I was expecting a lot of spice, but that did fall flat for me. I'm not saying there wasn't spice in there, or some steam, but it wasn't that steamy, and definitely I wanted more from the main characters. But yeah, it's part of I think it's got 5 or 6 books, so I'm sure we'll get there in the end. And is there anything else I want to say? I don't know. It was just so good. It was so good. I don't want to miss out, because this would be my recommendation of the month. Read it. However, check trigger warnings before you read, and the author does make a note to say that what does she say? Like, she's not going to be with the same guy throughout. She said, this is a slow burn, why choose series? Therefore, as the series progresses, the main romance will involve more than just one love interest. So I'm interested. I've never experienced that before so blatantly. So I'm really excited to see the journey of these 2 characters. Oh yeah, I don't know if I said, but I gave it 4 out of 5. Now, the last book of the reading wrap up is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, and that's all I'm going to say about the book. And this is due to what's going on in Israel and Gaza at the moment. I'm being a lot more diligent with how I spend my time and what brands to spend my money on, etc. And there's just been a lot coming out about authors and their stance, etc. And I just feel like with that author, I just don't know properly what her stance is. I've done my own research and I've listened to what other people have said. In that regard, it seems like its stance doesn't align with how I feel and how I'm spending my brand, like, money on and time on going forward. However, she hasn't released any statement. She hasn't said anything, but again, that might speak volumes. So going forward, I'm not going to promote her books or talk about them. Yeah, so the reason why I'm keeping it in the wrap up today is because it was part of a book club book which started, I think, in late September, and we continued on reading it and finishing it, and I finished it in November, and I included it in my Bookstagram wrap up, and then since then I've just been overthinking it, and it's just not worth it, and I didn't want to lie about it. I don't want to be like, yeah, I didn't read it, even though I've said I have on a different platform. So going forward, like, that's like a closed book for me. I'm not going to mention the author or her books going forward. And yeah, until there's a change or I know what her stance is. She released a statement or whatnot, I don't know. But yeah, so that's that. Okay, so that's the end of the reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I really enjoyed filming it, and yeah, I just liked my November reads. I had some great firsts, so like the Viking Romance, that was really, really cool. And just such a good read. I'm so glad I took the plunge, because with indie authors and with genres I'm not really into, it's always, I don't know much about them. They don't get much reviews or much PR. So I'm glad I went for it, and yeah, I just really liked it. So that would be my recommended book of the month. And yeah, like third book in of the Three Dark Crown series. And yeah, let me know if you're reading any of the books I'm reading, your opinions of them. And yeah, are you continuing with Three Dark Crowns if you're reading it? Let me know what you think. And yeah, I hope you had a good November reads. Let me know. And yeah, I hope you're having a nice December. There should be another blog up before the end of the year. And yeah, just hope you're enjoying the month and feeling festive. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.